The cold winter air bit at Jordan's skin as he sat alone at the corner of Larkspur Café, staring at the empty chair across from him. His fingers wrapped tightly around the coffee cup in front of him, the warmth of the mug doing little to calm the coldness that had taken over his heart. He had been waiting for nearly 2 hours, long enough to feel the weight of disappointment settle deep into his chest. His sister, Pamela, had arranged the blind date, convinced that a little distraction might help him move on from the grief that had haunted him for 3 long years. But as the minutes ticked by, it became clearer to Jordan that he was alone tonight, not just in the cafe, but in the world. The love he had once shared with Megan seemed so distant now, buried beneath layers of sorrow and regret. Just as he was about to give up and leave, he noticed a small figure approaching his table. A little girl, no older than 7, walked up to him, her big eyes full of innocence and curiosity. She stopped in front of him and stared at him for a moment before speaking. "You look like someone who forgot how to smile." The words hit Jordan like a splash of cold water. He blinked in surprise, caught off guard by the blunt honesty of the child. Her voice was soft, but there was an undeniable wisdom in her gaze, an understanding that was both unsettling and strangely comforting. He didn't know why, but he found himself smiling, despite the ache in his chest. For the first time in a long time, he felt something other than numbness. Before he could respond, the girl's mother, Stella, appeared at her side, offering an apologetic smile. "I'm so sorry. She doesn't always know when to keep her thoughts to herself." Jordan's smile widened. "No, it's okay," he said, his voice softer than he had intended. "She's right, actually. I've forgotten how to smile." Stella, a woman in her early 30s with a tired but kind face, nodded sympathetically. "We all go through tough times. Sometimes it's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel." There was something about the way Stella spoke, genuine, unpretentious, that made Jordan want to open up, something he hadn't felt in years. He had never been one to seek out others' company, much less share his pain. But in that moment, something shifted. Perhaps it was the honesty in her voice, or maybe it was the unexpected connection with the little girl who had unknowingly awakened something in him. For the first time in a long time, he didn't feel so alone. Hello, family, and welcome to Fiction Stories TV. If you love deeply emotional stories about love, loss, and unexpected reunions, please subscribe to our channel, like this video, and share it with someone you care about. Don't forget to turn on your notifications so you never miss a new story from us. Your support truly means everything. Now, sit back, relax, and let's dive in. Jordan had never been particularly social, especially not in the wake of Megan's death. He had closed himself off from everyone, content to immerse himself in his work and the empty luxury of his wealth. He hadn't realized just how far he'd withdrawn from the world until that moment, when the innocent words of a child and the warmth of a stranger's voice pierced through the fog that had consumed him. Stella wasn't offering him pity. She wasn't even offering advice. She was simply there, a quiet presence who understood that sometimes all someone needed was to be seen. After a few more minutes of conversation, Jordan reluctantly parted ways with them, though not without feeling a spark of something unfamiliar, a sense of hope he hadn't felt in a long time. As they walked out of the cafe, little Ivy turned to wave at him, her innocent smile lighting up her face. The next day, Jordan couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted in him. He found himself thinking about Ivy's words and the way Stella had carried herself so gracefully despite the weight of her own struggles. He realized he hadn't truly seen anyone in years, least of all himself. He had buried himself in grief, convinced that moving on would dishonor Megan's memory. But what was the point of living a life where love was nothing more than a distant memory? The thought gnawed at him, and by the time he arrived at his office, he had made up his mind. He was going to do something about it. He wasn't sure what that something was yet, but he was determined to try. He wasn't going to keep shutting himself off from the world. He couldn't keep pretending that the walls he'd built around himself were protecting him anymore. The walls were suffocating him. He found Stella's number in his phone and stared at it for a moment before hitting the call button. It rang 3 times before she picked up. "Hello." Stella's voice was calm, as if she hadn't just made an impact on his life. "Hi, Stella, it's Jordan, from the cafe last night." "Oh, hey, how are you?" she asked, her voice warm and friendly. "I'm good," he said, pausing before adding, "I've been thinking about what you said, about seeing the light." There was a small silence on the other end of the line. "I'm glad my words meant something. We all need a little light sometimes." Jordan smiled, feeling something inside him stir. "I was wondering if you'd like to grab coffee sometime. I could really use some company." If this story has touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more emotional stories about healing, love, and second chances. Have you ever had an unexpected encounter that changed your life? Let us know in the comments below. Share this video with someone who could use a little inspiration today. As they met for coffee the following week, something incredible began to unfold between them. Jordan wasn't used to opening up to people, but with Stella, it felt natural. It felt like the weight of the world was lifting from his shoulders, one conversation at a time. The more he learned about her, the more he admired her, her resilience, her strength, and the grace with which she handled life's challenges. Despite her exhaustion from juggling work and motherhood, Stella never once complained. She was a single mother, doing everything she could for her daughter, Ivy, but there was no bitterness in her voice when she spoke about the sacrifices she made. In fact, she spoke about her daughter with pride and love, her words full of admiration for Ivy's ability to light up her world. Jordan couldn't help but notice how her eyes softened whenever she talked about Ivy. It was a love he had never known, but now, for the first time in years, he longed to understand it. As their relationship continued to grow, Jordan couldn't help but feel more drawn to Stella. She wasn't just a woman he admired from afar, she had become someone who challenged him, who made him want to be better. They spent hours talking about their pasts, their fears, and their dreams. Every conversation seemed to peel away another layer of the man he had once been, revealing someone who was capable of more than just success, someone who was capable of love. As the weeks passed, Jordan found himself spending more and more time with Stella and Ivy. He wasn't sure when it happened, but somewhere along the way, they became more than just two people connecting out of mutual understanding. They became a family. It wasn't conventional, nor was it what Jordan had expected, but it felt right. He had spent years thinking he had everything he needed, his wealth, his business empire, but in reality, he had been missing something far more valuable: connection. And now, for the first time, he felt whole. One crisp morning, Jordan invited Stella and Ivy to join him for a day at his private estate in the Hamptons. It was a peaceful retreat, far removed from the city's bustle, and Jordan thought it would be the perfect place to spend time together, away from the demands of work and everyday life. The moment they arrived, Ivy ran straight for the sprawling garden, her laughter filling the air as she chased butterflies. Stella stood beside Jordan, watching their daughter with a smile that spoke volumes. Jordan noticed how natural it was for Stella to be in this space, as though she belonged here just as much as he did. "I didn't think you'd want to come out here," Jordan said, his voice uncertain. He hadn't shared this part of his life with anyone before. It was the one place where he allowed himself to breathe, and he wasn't sure how someone else would fit into that world. But Stella had already proved time and again that she wasn't someone who needed to fit in. She simply made her own space. "I'm glad you invited us," Stella replied, her voice warm. "This place is beautiful." She looked around, her eyes catching the afternoon sun. "You've created something special here." Jordan smiled, feeling the weight of her words. It wasn't just the house or the property he had built. It was the feeling of warmth, of belonging that made the space truly special. And that was something Stella had helped him see. As the day went on, Jordan and Stella found themselves talking about their pasts, things they hadn't shared before. Stella revealed how she had become a nurse, how hard it had been to balance work and motherhood, and the isolation she sometimes felt in a world that didn't always seem to understand her. Jordan listened intently, his heart softening with each word. He realized how much strength it took for her to carry everything on her shoulders, and he admired her even more. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the three of them sat around a fire pit on the patio, roasting marshmallows. Ivy's laughter echoed in the background as she played with the puppy Jordan had brought out for her, but Jordan's attention remained on Stella. He could feel the pull of their connection, a bond that had been slowly forming over the past few weeks. It was no longer just about healing from grief. It was about something more. something he hadn't allowed himself to believe in for years. "I've been thinking a lot about you," Jordan admitted, his voice quiet. "About everything." Stella turned to face him, her expression serious but not distant. "What do you mean?" "I've spent so much time thinking that my life was complete without love, without family, but being with you and Ivy. It's made me realize that I've been wrong. I've been avoiding what I need most, and I'm tired of running from it." Stella's eyes softened. She reached over and placed her hand gently on his. "You're not running anymore," she said. "You're here with us." The sincerity in her words made Jordan's chest tighten. He didn't know what had taken him so long to come to this realization, but he was certain of one thing: he didn't want to live without them. Over the next few days, they continued to spend time together, growing closer, learning more about each other. But not all of the progress they made came without resistance. Jordan's sister, Tessa, had been supportive up until now, but when she came to visit for a weekend, she expressed concern about how quickly Jordan was moving. She hadn't been around much lately, but when she saw how much time he was spending with Stella and Ivy, she felt the need to step in. "You're rushing into this," Tessa said one evening over dinner. "I get it, Jordan. You've been alone for a long time, and maybe it's easier to settle with someone who's not exactly like the women you used to date, but you're going to end up making a mistake if you don't slow down." Jordan stared at her, his temper rising. "What are you trying to say?" Tessa hesitated but pressed on. "You're emotionally vulnerable right now. I just think you need to be careful. Don't confuse comfort with love. Don't let your guilt dictate your decisions." Stella, who had been quietly listening, stood up, her gaze steady and unfazed. "You don't know me, Tessa," she said calmly. "And you don't know what I'm offering. This isn't about comfort or guilt. This is about two people building something real." The tension in the air was thick, and for a moment, Jordan wasn't sure where the conversation was headed. He had never been someone who allowed his personal life to be challenged so openly, but he realized that Stella was standing up for him in a way he had never experienced before. After a few tense moments, Jordan finally spoke. "Tessa, I appreciate your concern, but I'm not the same person I was before, and neither is Stella. We're building something, and it's real." The silence that followed was heavy, but Tessa nodded, though it was clear that she didn't fully understand. Jordan didn't expect her to. But that night, after Tessa left, Jordan and Stella shared a quiet moment together. The pressure from his family had been hard to ignore, but in that silence, Jordan realized just how much he had changed, and how much Stella had come to mean to him. Days turned into weeks, and with each passing moment, Jordan and Stella grew closer. Their connection deepened, not just in shared moments of tenderness, but through understanding one another's pains and vulnerabilities. Jordan had spent so long shutting people out, believing that wealth and success could fill the void Megan's death had left. But in Stella and in Ariella, he found something much more profound: the power of human connection. They spent time together on weekends, often at Jordan's estate, where Ariella and Jordan would play, while Stella and he would talk about life, love, and their future. In the quiet moments, Jordan realized that the woman in front of him wasn't just the mother of a bright young girl. She was a woman of incredible strength and grace. She balanced the pressures of being a single mother with poise, and Jordan began to admire her even more for it. But more than that, he felt a deep respect for her, one that hadn't existed with any of the relationships from his past. One evening, as they sat by the fire on the estate's balcony, Jordan asked, "Stella, what if this is just a moment? What if we're just filling a void for each other?" Her gaze softened and she reached over, taking his hand. Her fingers were warm against his. "Then we'll make the most of the moment," she said, her voice steady but full of meaning. "There's no guarantee in life, Jordan, but I know this. I don't want to live in the past anymore. I want to live for today, and with you, I feel like I'm finally able to." Her words hit him deeply. They were simple, but in their simplicity, they held everything he had been afraid to say. He didn't want to live in the past anymore either. He didn't want to be trapped by memories of someone he could never bring back. They spent the next few weeks navigating their relationship, getting to know each other more fully, and confronting the realities of their situation. There were moments when Jordan felt unworthy of Stella, the shadows of his past still haunting him. There were moments when Stella worried about the future, wondering if their differences, whether it was their social circles or her position in his life, would eventually tear them apart. But through all of it, their bond never wavered. They found themselves learning and growing together. Jordan started becoming more involved in Ivy's life, attending her school plays, helping with homework, and even teaching her how to play chess. But then came the day Jordan's ex-girlfriend, Claire, came back into the picture. She called Jordan, expressing her desire to meet. She wanted closure, and despite the way she had left, Jordan found himself agreeing to meet. He didn't know why, but he needed to put the past to rest once and for all. As he sat across from Claire at a café in the city, he realized just how far he had come since that devastating breakup. Claire talked about the past, about how much she had meant to him, but Jordan didn't feel the way he once did. All he could think about was Stella and how she had opened his heart again. When Claire asked if they could possibly try again, Jordan realized he was no longer that man who couldn't live without her. "No, Claire," he said, his voice steady and clear. "I loved you, but that's in the past. I've moved on. I've found something better." After their conversation ended, Jordan made his way to the office, but the whole time his mind was on Stella. He wanted to tell her everything, how far he'd come, how much she had changed his life. But before he could get to her, his phone buzzed. It was Stella. "Ivy's birthday is coming up," she said, "and I was wondering if you wanted to be there for it." Jordan smiled, his heart swelling. "Of course I'll be there every step of the way." The day of Ivy's 7th birthday arrived, and Jordan was determined to make it special. He'd spent weeks planning with Stella, but this day was for them, their family. They had a picnic, the three of them, Jordan, Stella, and Ivy, at the park, their first outing as a new family unit. Ivy, glowing with happiness, ran toward him as he set up the blankets on the grass. "You came," she said, throwing her arms around him. Her small frame felt like a weight being lifted from his shoulders. There was no place he'd rather be than with this little girl who had taught him to smile again. As the day progressed, there were moments of laughter, joy, and shared love. But as the sun began to set, Jordan found himself pulled aside by Stella. She looked at him, her eyes soft but resolute. "You're part of this now, Jordan," she said, her voice a whisper between them. "I don't know where this is going, but I know that I'm not letting go." Jordan looked into her eyes and felt his heart beat faster. For the first time in a long time, he realized that he had found the love he had been searching for all along. Not through wealth or business success, but through the love of a woman and a child who had slowly but surely healed his broken heart. That evening, as the fireflies flickered around them and Ivy's laughter filled the air, Jordan made a promise to himself and to the woman he loved. He would never forget how to smile again. As the months passed, Jordan's feelings for Stella deepened and their bond grew stronger. He proposed to her one quiet evening beneath the stars, with Ivy holding the ring in her tiny hands. It wasn't a grand, opulent affair. It was simple, just the three of them, the way it had always been meant to be. The wedding followed soon after, a beautiful ceremony, with Ivy as the flower girl, running down the aisle with the brightest smile on her face. As Jordan and Stella exchanged vows, surrounded by family and close friends, Jordan couldn't help but think of how far he had come. If this story has moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories about healing, love, and second chances. Share this video with someone who needs a bit of hope today. What would it take for you to open your heart again? Let us know in the comments below.